Bitcoin has been getting crushed over the past couple of days. And in this video, I want to go ahead and talk to you guys about my thoughts on the market right now. And I want to go ahead and give my TA here for Bitcoin, as well as give you guys some important information and important data that you can use to then make your own decisions about what to do with your Bitcoin. So I'm going to go ahead and get right into it. So Bitcoin has had a rough couple of days. But if we have if you take a look at the chart TA here, that I have the daily chart up right now, you can see here that Bitcoin is actually on the cusp of testing support here at about 62,000 or so. And normally, within, I'd say, about the last 2 months, you have a very strong band of support here from about 60K up to about 62K. We've seen Bitcoin drop down in this region multiple times here, as indicated by the arrows, and every single time it was bought up. Okay, so it almost looks like we're basically heading back into that zone once more. And I would expect that buyers will come in here, they will buy again, and Bitcoin will bounce again out of this region of strong support. I also want to go ahead and talk about the daily RSI here at the bottom. Daily RSI for Bitcoin is at 41 right now, which is really, really low for where we are in the bull market. In fact, if you pulled it out and take a look at the historical data, we can see here that the last time it was this low was in January earlier this year, and that's when Bitcoin basically had like a little mini crash and went from 41 down to about 39,000 or so. So Bitcoin is in a precarious situation. My expectations for Bitcoin is that this support band right here will hold, and then after that, we're going to move up a bit higher. But that being said, we have the halving coming up in a couple of days. In fact, if you go ahead and take a look at the Bitcoin halving clock, you can see actually we're about 3 days away from the current halving, even though it says April 20th. So I think that actually what that means for us is that we're going to wind up having a strong reaction after the halving is done. Now, what would really concern me is if Bitcoin kind of pumped heading into the halving, and that would almost indicate that we're going to have like a sell the news type of event where after the halving, we see Bitcoin's price come down. But instead, going into the halving, it looks like Bitcoin is actually fairly weak. So a post-halving bounce, I think, is probably going to be the most likely scenario. A post-halving bounce, like I'm talking about here, could mean that we can go all the way back up to about maybe 70K or so before encountering that heavy resistance that Bitcoin got stopped out on last time. So in the near term, Bitcoin looking kind of bearish. Not a big surprise when you consider the traditional markets, the S&P 500 down 3% in 5 days, the NASDAQ down about 3% in 5 days, Bitcoin down a little over 9% in the past 5 days. It really hasn't been a great story for Bitcoin. If you take a look at the Fear and Greed Index, we're at about 59 right now, which isn't too crazy for greed. And I'm actually, again, very surprised that we're even at this low here in the current bull market. If we take a look at the total 1 year chart here for the Fear and Greed Index, you can see that where we are right now is nowhere near where it peaked out at about 90 or so, and so sentiment really isn't great for Bitcoin right now, but it's still more on the bullish side. All right. And I also want to go ahead and talk about the liquidation heat maps. So usually when I look at this, I like to go ahead and take a look at the 1 week to give me a better idea of the liquidity levels that we're looking at here. Now there's a massive liquidity level here, and again, about that 71,000 level, that's about $704 million worth of shorts just chilling at that level. And not really a big surprise considering Bitcoin has had trouble overcoming this resistance level right here. Now on the other side, for longs, most of the longs have gotten wiped out. The largest longs concentrations that I've seen here is about 186 million or so. Zoom in here a little bit, about 186 million, and that's about 61,000. So again, kind of in that region of support. So if we do come down into about 61.5, then most likely what we're going to see is a move all the way down to about 60 before we get another bounce. So I think that's actually that's possible if we do wind up getting that low. But I do think for the most part that 60K is going to hold. If it doesn't hold, then I'm going to make another video about that, and we can discuss that that circumstance in a future video. Now, I also want to go ahead and talk about Bitcoin seasonality. So Bitcoin seasonality has been very important, and right now we're still in April, but we're going to be heading into May and June very soon here. And as you can see down here on both the average and the median for May and June, normally these aren't good months for Bitcoin. The average for May is a little bit higher, but if you take a look at the median, it's negative, okay? You look at the average for June, it's barely even positive, and you look at the median, it's only 2% or so. So even when Bitcoin has had some bullish, has had a bull market or bullish price action, we can see that, like for instance, in 2021, May wasn't a good year, down 35%, 2022 down 15%, and recent history in 2023 down 7%. So May's been really hit or miss. June has also been very hit or miss. Normally these aren't the strongest months for Bitcoin, but April is actually normally a pretty good month for Bitcoin. So I'd be really surprised if we close the month down 11%, but anything can happen. Now, I also want to go ahead and talk about the short-term versus long-term holder supply. As you guys may know, I always like to take a look at this to see what the whales who have been long-term holders have been doing. And so the long-term holder supply right now is at about 78% of the total supply. This is down from a peak that we had here at about 84, 85%. So we haven't really seen it go down that much. It's been selling. They've been selling a little bit, but it's kind of stabilized a little bit since the price has taken a bit of a nosedive in the past couple of days. So right now, the long-term holders are still kind of holding strong. I still expect that during the next bull market peak, that we'll actually see a greater than 78%. It'll be a greater loss than just going down to 78%. It'll probably go down to like 60%, somewhere in that range, 65% or so. That's much more likely when we'll know whether or not the current bull market top has happened, or we still have more room left to run in this bull market. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is Bitcoin ETFs. So I've been checking this sosovalue.xyz, and this has kind of really helped me out, especially with the daily total net inflows of Bitcoin to these ETFs. We're actually at negative. It actually hit negative today. So we had outflows of $110 million from all the ETFs today. So it just goes to show you, again, not a big surprise given the fact that the NASDAQ's down, S&P 500's down. There's been a lot of talk about the war in the Middle East and the conflict going on there. So this really is not a big surprise when you consider the fact the markets are down. Bitcoin's probably going to be down as well. And we've seen a lot of people selling their ETFs. And as a result, those ETF managers have to go and sell Bitcoin. So we've seen that $110 million worth of outflows for the 15th of April. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the exchange reserve. So the exchange reserve continues to actually hit new lows. It's actually right now at about 1.9 million. Now, you may think to yourself, well, it's kind of strange to have Bitcoin, the exchange reserve, the number of Bitcoin on the exchange, to be on a continuous downward trend. Meanwhile, the price is kind of going nowhere or even going down. But it just goes to show you that even though there is less Bitcoin on exchanges, demand just hasn't been there in the past month or two to really push the price higher. Okay, so we are seeing just still a steady decline in the number of Bitcoin on these exchanges, and I think it's going to continue to happen because that's been the long-term trend for a while now. Now, the last thing I want to talk about, very important, miners, the miners reserve, how many Bitcoin are in miners' wallets. We've seen a continual decline in the number of Bitcoin in miners' wallets. It started out the year at about 1.833, so 1.8 million or 1,833,000, and now here it's at 1,817,000. So miners are still selling. They continue to sell. They will continue to sell much until past the halving, I think, and then we'll wind up seeing them hopefully just hold on to what they've got instead of selling at every possible opportunity. But you know what? Let me know what you guys think about this. If you think that this level is going to hold or not, or if you think that it's going to break, and if it does, where it's going to wind up, or if this level does hold, if you think we're going to get a post halving bounce? Leave a comment below, and I'll catch you guys on the next video.